So we have this equation that we are unable to solve as of yet. X squared plus 4x minus 1 equals 5. And we saw in the last video that we can't solve it by factoring. We can't solve it by square root. We can't solve it by perfect square because this isn't a perfect square. But we came up with the idea of making it be a perfect square. You'll be a perfect square. Or else you'll go to your room, or whatever it is your parents do to make you do things. We're going to force this side of the equation to be a perfect square trinomial. So in order to do that, we need to look, we're just going to look x squared plus 4x plus something. What does this have to be in order to make this a perfect square? So the first term in a perfect square trinomial, the first term is a perfect square. So we have that, x squared. That's a perfect square. The last term is a perfect square. We don't have that yet. The middle term is 2 times the square root of the first times the square root of the last. So I'm just going to put in a 1 here for us. So the middle term, here's our middle term, is 2 times the square root of the first times the square root of the last. So the middle term, 4, is 2 times 1 times the square root of c. So the middle term is 2 times the square root of c. So if we divide by 2, 2 equals the square root of c, and then square both sides, we get that this needs to be 4. So if this were a 4, if we had x squared plus 4x plus 4 on that side, then we could solve it. So that's what we're going to do in the future, but right now we're just going to take a few notes on how to, this shouldn't be in there, how to make something be a perfect square trinomial. So let's do x squared plus 10x plus c. Okay, you're going to take, because the middle term is 2 times the square root of the first times the square root of the last, you're going to take the middle term, just the coefficient really, you're going to divide by 2. Later on, we need to remember that dividing by 2 is the same as multiplying by a half. That's going to help us. And then you're going to square it. Okay? Notice the coefficient of the squared term for this to work. So this is to find c that makes a perfect square trinomial. Notice the coefficient for the squared term, it has to be 1 right now. So we're going to take the middle term, 10. We're going to divide it by 2. And then we're going to square it. And we get, if c is 25, we get x squared plus 10x plus 25. Whoops. Oh my god. plus 25. Then we have a perfect square trinomial. Let's try that again. I'm going to give one to you. Let's do x squared plus 20x plus c. Find the value of c that makes that a perfect square trinomial. So hopefully you paused and did it. I'm going to take the middle term, 20. I'm going to divide it by 2. Then I'm going to square it. And I'm going to get 100. So x squared plus 20x plus 100 is a perfect square trinomial. And that is how you force things to be a perfect square trinomial. So now you're going to practice doing that.